Ford, can
If we're ready, then I'll go ahead and call to order the Thursday, October 22nd Watertown Board of Adjustment meeting. Can I get a roll call?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Kays,
Here.
Brink,
Here.
Dargits Johnson,
Here.
Ford,
here?
Oletsky,
Present.
Spire,
Here.
and Dolly.
Here.
Okay, that leaves us with Culhane is absent. Well, I should call Culhane. Culhane is absent.
All right, thank you, Stacy. Moving on to item 3 on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the October 8th, 2020 meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review those minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. No additional discussion on those? All right, take a vote.
Kays,
Yes.
Brink,
Yes.
Dargits Johnson,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Oletsky,
Yes.
Spire,
Yes.
Dolly.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion passes. All right, moving on to item 4 on the agenda. We have a variance request at 3920 Golf Course Road. Stacy, I'll turn that over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a variance request. It is for Max and Emily Borkus. It's at 3920 Golf Course Road, and I do have it pulled up on the screen here. The applicants are seeking a variance to construct a 36 by 56 detached garage with a 12-foot sidewall in the R1 single-family residential district. The ordinance limits an unattached sidewall height to 10 feet 2 inches. The owners are requesting a variance for the size of the proposed garage as well, and that's 2,016 square feet. And the ordinance does allow up to 1,600 square feet with this particular lot size. We do not anticipate that there will be a variance for the setbacks, as the owners plan to meet the setbacks. Just for a bit of background, the property has been annexed and zoned, and that was completed back on August 3rd of 2020. A replat combining both lots has been approved, and it will be recorded soon. There are several larger unattached garages in the immediate vicinity. However, the other properties are in Cottington County. So I'll turn on that layer here. And this has recently been annexed, but as you can see, some of these back pieces are still within the county. The property is over a ½ acre in size, and the surrounding lots are also larger lots. And the owners are requesting a variance in order to store a camper, trailer, and other vehicles. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Stacy. We do have a public hearing on this item, so I'd like to open the public hearing at this time. If there's anybody here to speak on behalf, either in the room or on Teams.
Is he here? Is that you? Yep, I'm here. Come on up.
Stacy, I have a question. I don't think I was here for that meeting. So we just annexed the one property, or did we annex in a whole?
I believe it was just that one property.
And why did we do that?
We did that because that came out of a request from Cottington County. Luke Muller did request that the property be annexed, and the applicant has complied.
Have there been any other properties where the county they own both lots, all of them do?
Yes.
And are there any other of those back lots? Are they brought into the city also?
They were not. I do have a brief history that was given to me from Luke on this. So basically, he said around about 2005 and 2006, the county would permit these with the agreement that the properties were to annex at such time that the city requested annexation. So they were essentially waiving their rights to protest the annexation. And then also with the agreement that the two lots would be held together and not sold separately. So there were a few of those agreements. However, back in 2015, there was another applicant that had a similar situation, and the county wasn't real satisfied, I guess, with those agreements. And so they did require a petition to annex within 1 year. And so then the applicant decided not to complete the project. So then the joint ordinance, so we were thinking 2015, then the joint ordinance was approved after that. And so the county would like to work with us on these. So they're essentially annexed in for better land use planning, instead of having a remnant piece that is located in the county. And the applicants have also not only annexed, they've also platted the property to comply with the city regulations.
So let's say,
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Case.
Yeah, I can also give you a little bit of insight. I was the county zoning officer that issued some of those building permits for some of those garages back in the early 2005 through 10 timeframe in that area, in that era. And I think Stacy did a very good job of explaining the background. Theoretically, Mr. Borkhouse could have came to the county. The county could have taken this to the joint zoning board where Mr. Dolly sits on that, and they could have approved the placement of a garage there larger than what you would find in the city. And with the same conditions as had been done previously. But all of those other garages that permits were issued to in the past were all done prior to the joint jurisdictional ordinance. And so that's why I think Luke was thinking that it would be best if we couldn't just get them annexed into the city, which makes the most sense. We've done this before in the past on the county side. A former city council member that lives along 19th Street had the same thing done to his property. And there are several other properties around the periphery of the city where there is maybe the principal structure, the house is in the city, but there might be a portion of the lot that's outside of the city. And so I think it's kind of where the county would, and the city have had a gentleman's agreement over the past and would like to see that moving forward, especially under the new auspices of a joint jurisdiction, if we can just get them to be annexed into the city. And so I think otherwise, if it would have came to the joint jurisdiction board, Mr. Daly, I would imagine that, it probably would have been approved consistent with the other ones that were done in the past.
Yeah, and I think the situation like this that stands out is the fact that it is one owner for both of the lots, and with the annexation, we do have the opportunity then to combine them and replat them.
Yeah.
Are they always going to require, like if another one of them homeowners out there that don't have the garage on their back lots or in the county, are they going to require them to also annex into the city?
Yes, I believe so. That we are going to try that practice. So then that way we can move forward with getting the lot platted and looking at it as one lot within the city and not having a standalone structure out in the county and a house within the city limits.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Heath here. I'll just add to that. I don't know if Stacy, if you were here when this first came about for annexation, I don't believe you were, but I know Brandy helped with it. And I think that's how this actually evolved for this particular property, that Luke was first approached at the county and he deferred them to us in order to initiate an annexation and get the permit through the city. So I would envision moving forward in that way with any of these other lots. Now to the earlier question, whether we should, retroactively go back and kind of clean this up, I'm in favor of doing that too. That would take some coordination and a lot of involvement here with several property owners, obviously. But I don't know what the board stance would be on that, whether we want to look into getting that cleaned up as well or not.
I just brought up
Yeah, I
a
think it's
couple.
certainly an opportunity to be, proactive in this, but at minimum, it's something that we should look at for any additional requests for construction going forward.
I just brought up a couple photos of some of the attached or the detached structures within a close proximity.
Stacy, how big a lot is that now that it's one?
It is 26,270 square feet in size.
So, a couple acres.
It's over just over a half an acre.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I looked at this a little bit today, and I looked at the existing structure, the residence and the proposed garage and the size of the garage. And when you take a look at combining the square footages of both those structures on that property, it would still be less than, or approximately 20% of lot coverage from a structural standpoint. I think one of the other interesting aspects about this particular property is that most people will never see the size of this garage based upon the way the tree coverage and that this is, and the other structures out there. You might be able to see it driving from the southwest, but there are other structures, of largeness. And I think I'm inclined to support the request just basically because of the uniqueness of this particular type of request. I know that even at if you look at 812 42nd Street Northwest, which is on the map, I believe that garage right there, which is in city limits, is about 3,000 square feet.
I agree with Todd. I was just going to say the same thing. No one's ever going to see these garages. And from what I can see from, being around these properties for a while, they're all very well maintained. So it's not like he's going to park junk. I would hope not. That's why you're building it. And I just think it'll look great.
And there is a significant elevation difference as well. I went out there today and took a look at the property, and I noticed that as well. The road and the homes are much higher than the back portion of these lots. So really something is only visible if you get over here to this vantage point closer to these storage units to the south.
Hey, Max, how are you going to access You're gonna extend your driveway?
Yes.
Okay. You know, the lot lines on some of this stuff, you really can't see where it's at, but it'll just keep going around the back and, okay.
I do have a question. On the site plan, you show the 2 garage doors to the north that you would access from your lot to the north. You also show a garage door on the south side of the building, 12-foot garage door. What's the plan for that south-facing garage door?
That there's just basically, you know, a view to the south. I mean, if I ever, you know, if I want to put cement back there, you know, just for that's really it.
To get to your stuff in the back of the garage?
Yeah, pretty much.
I just had a question or a concern, I guess, on the space there for a garage door. It's only 9 foot from the property, so that's really not enough for an ingress egress of a vehicle.
It was primarily just, you know, if I have people over or whatnot, it's just really a view.
Are you planning to put sewer and water to that?
No.
So is your driveway off of, is that like a section line there? Is that what we're looking at, that the driveway is? No, but his private drive down, is that a section line, Stacy?
Let's take a look at it. I guess I'm not sure. I think it could be.
It
it's
must be
probably
because it's not included in either person's.
right, and it looks like it could be preserved at some point in time if this land back here does develop.
It is a city right of way.
It's a public right of way.
Just
But it only
not
goes
improved.
part of the way down that area there too. So where the small lot was to the east, that is private property to the west there between that and the other garage structure.
I believe Mr. Riefenberger is the owner of that property there, but I'm not exactly sure whether or not he's granted. I think it's the neighbor to the east. I believe has access, and that was done years ago, I believe.
Yeah, and Mr. Riefenberger was here in the past when we talked about the annexation of this property with some concerns about access onto the property in question here, and that's kind of why I bring up that that access being from the north. So it is private property, and you may be correct that some arrangement was made with the other property owner.
Now you can see it on the map. It looks like this property owner here, the Riefenberger property, it does go up here to about that line where this smaller remnant pieces are.
I would expect that at some point in time, as the Riefenberger property was to develop in the future, that would be turned into a public right of way and used as an access point into that property.
I think that's probably fairly likely in future development.
Mr. Chair, this is Ford.
Yes.
So we're talking about developing possibly in the future this property on the south side. So if that does occur, this building could be, or any of these buildings could be visible to that development. Would that be correct?
It could be, yes.
Certainly could be, yeah.
All right. And has anyone of the neighbors made any comments about this, Stacy? Did you receive any communications?
I have not received anything up until the point of the meeting tonight.
All right. And I'm wondering, there's so much land here. Granted, it's a large piece of property, but one of the criteria of approving a variance is that there needs to be an unnecessary hardship. Is there a hardship here that we need to be aware of? I'm unaware of what it might be to grant this variance.
Primarily, it's just so I can store my camper indoors.
So it's more convenience than
Yes,
hardship.
yes, that's why I need the 12-foot sidewall so I can, get my camper in there.
So it's more convenience than hardship.
Correct.
Okay.
And Diana, this is Brandy. And this is
Yes.
kind of where we talked before about amending that detached garage ordinance, maybe just with how looking at similar applications in the past. And when, just because 12 foot is a little more typical, more than the 10 foot too, of what we're seeing as repetitively getting applications for. So it might be something too that the board would want to see just amended if we don't care if it's 12 foot versus 10 foot too. If it is, because obviously the reason people are building detached garages is for storage and to clean up their properties. So if we can create the convenience through the ordinance, if it's not that big of a deal,
Is that-
depending on board
Is
discussion.
that changing? But that has not yet been started or approved. Is that correct, Brandy?
Right, I did bring it up probably a couple months ago now for discussion. We started preliminary discussion about it, but we were gonna do some more research. Just haven't gotten to that yet.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question on our ordinance. We allow a 1,600 square foot detached garage. Is that based on the actual lot size or the zoning or the amount of building, or how is that 1,600?
I believe it's the lot size.
So how big would the lot have to be for us to allow a 2,016 square foot structure?
We'll take a look.
It would need to be an acre to 87,000 square feet, so they're in ratios like that.
So 1 to 2 acres would allow for this to be a conforming based on square footage.
Yep.
Max, are there other sheds or garages like what you're gonna build out there on those back lots, even though they're still in the county instead of in the city?
Well,
big as
you've
what
got-
you wanna
You've got
build?
Dr. Dan's Morton building there.
How tall is that sidewall and how big is that?
It's probably 18-foot sidewalls.
Okay, that's it right there.
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty big.
I think something for perspective too is like also that has metal siding and where any detached garage within city limits has to be residentially sided. And then also because this is a half-acre lot where it could be subdivided into two single-family residential lots, where then potentially you could have another primary structure, single-family home on an additional lot, which could be 35 feet in height. Just to give you kind of proximity of like size and what's allowed.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I guess, I do agree that the hardship issue might be a tough nut to crack on this, but I think it's the uniqueness of the request is where I'm resting this on. And also based upon, I think this is a foray from the county to try to do what's best for the city. And I'm going to guess that if we have individuals who own property on the periphery of the city that could come in and get this request approved on the county and be turned around for something on the city's perspective, that offer could always be redacted from the county. And I think we have so very few of these types of instances on the periphery of the community. I think it's the uniqueness of this request and the general indication that it's not going to be, it's in general context with the neighborhood, it's generally compatible, is why I would support this.
Mr. Case, how do you feel about the size of the 2,000 square feet, 25% larger than the 1,600 square feet, and the size of the lot that would really be needed to support a building that's 2,000 square feet? I'm wrestling with that also.
I think what I had said previously, though, I think our lot coverage requirement in the R1 zone is 30%. Is that correct? Staff?
I don't think we have I think it's only in the R3, there's an 80% lot coverage.
Well, commonly, most people that do zoning and that do it for a living and write policy more often than not, R1 zones have a maximum of anywhere between 30 and 35% lot coverage. And I think with this garage and the existing home and the size of the lot, I think I did the calculations today, it was around 21%. And so from the overall cubic size of the structure, I don't think it's overbearing for the size of the lot based upon normal standards across the nation. And as far as the height of the 1.5 foot height increase, I think it's going to be very nominal in comparison to some of the other structures that are out there. And that, again, I think it's more we're trying to fit a round peg into a square hole. And in the situation where it is that this applicant didn't necessarily have to come to the city. He could have asked for a due process request to go to the county, and the county joint zoning board very well could have issued this, and we wouldn't have this opportunity. And so I think it's a better long game request for the city than it is maybe on the short.
The other thing I think
have
we
to
can
agree
look
with
at here
Mr.
too, and more into the discussion of, how we look at these garages and unattached structures in the future is we do have a more recent ordinance with the residential garage district, and some of these issues have been addressed in the way that language was written. So that 30% maximum lot coverage is part of that RG district. That district does allow for 12-foot sidewall heights at a 9-foot setback, and up to 16 actually with increasing setbacks and eve requirements. There's some other items that were attached to that residential garage district that helped to address some of these construction needs, and it's certainly something that I think we need to look at more holistically.
There was a meeting about 5 meetings ago or so where we, kind of along the lines of what Mr. Kays was saying, where we denied a building permit because of its lot coverage. So when you point out the fact that this is only 20% coverage, it kind of is a different situation than how we've acted on this type of situation before. So I tend to agree with what Mr. Kays said.
And also, he is going to be blending in with the neighborhood. It's not like he's going to have the biggest shed out there. There's plenty of them out there.
Well, it is, but it's 9 foot off if that southern land ever would want to be developed. You've got that height 9 feet from that adjacent lot. That would be the, even the other garages set further into the property. So, future development of that, they aren't going to have 9 feet, this huge building. I mean, I get where it sits, and I get the fact that there's room to put it there. I'd rather see this garage put there than where we have allowed a few in town that is, in my opinion, kind of hideous when they're that tall in a residential area on corner lots. But so this is hidden, like you've pointed out. But I do, again, I guess looking forward, instead of 20 years from now, we say, oh, well, I guess we sure wish that wasn't 9 feet from that property line. So I may say, let's push it into his property more so than pushing it to the south for that reason.
Couldn't you push the garage farther north, Max?
Well, the garage doors are on the north side, so when I would back my camper into it, I would need the space. That's why I set it back all the way from in that corner. And then also Dr. Dan was concerned about me facing it to the west and driving on his property.
So the 9 foot does meet the setback requirements, though? That's correct?
Yes, it would meet the setback requirements. I understand the point that someday, like, this could become front yard. But right now, as we're talking about this piece, this is privately owned. So, we could speculate. It might become a front yard at some point, but right now it's privately owned. So, we couldn't enforce a front yard setback from a strict zoning perspective.
And right across the way is to the west. There's a garage directly across from it.
And when we annexed and zoned this property, there was a kind of a utility fee issue at that time. So I think the development to the south would be a little bit prohibitive by that. Am I, because there's an agreement about a utility fee. Am I on the right page?
I believe so, but perhaps Brandy or Bert could talk more about that.
Yep, so there is the consent decree with sewer, water, and Watertown municipal utilities. That has to be taken into consideration at the time of annexation.
Right, and because of that, I mean, the property to the south developing in the next 20 years is a little bit less likely. So another reason why I feel a variance here is a little bit more acceptable.
And it appears that there are trees on the south line too, right? Max?
Yes.
The other aspect to this whole thing is that you're correct. It's a large lot area, and if you're looking at developing this, I wouldn't be putting a street right there anyway. Anybody that knows anything about developing wouldn't be doing that. So I don't see that ever being a front yard street anyway. What you'd end up having is probably a row of lots coming in. It might be more of a side yard coming across because you're going to have an existing building there anyway that would end up being removed. And if you just look at just flow patterns, that's most designers would not put an east-west road at that intersection. And besides that, I almost think that this is probably going to be an area that would maybe develop more what I'm going to call what you see in the area. They're more of what I would call an estate type development where you have large lots. That would fit more into the neighborhood. But again, this is all speculative at this point.
Yep. I do have the public hearing open. Is there anybody else to speak here on behalf or against in the public?
Mr. Chairman, this is Mayor Karen.
Yes.
I just was noting that the Riefenberger's property has, it does abut public right-of-way only in that 60 feet, and it's otherwise landlocked. So if the Riefenbergers were ever to develop or sell that property to the south to develop, that's the only place where it abuts right-of-way. So that probably is where a road would go in the future, even if it's just a very small, short road to serve just a few houses. That's the only frontage on public right-of-way to that parcel to the south. So 9 feet off of that is, that will create a nonconformance if that 60-foot right-of-way is extended to the south. I don't know where else they would extend it, but they'd have to acquire property somewhere else. If it's possible to move the structure to be, 25 feet would be ideal, and it looks like the garage across the way is about 20 or 22 feet from the property line.
You're looking at this going to the east then?
No, I'm looking at the 60-foot right-of-way, which runs north and south between this house and the house to the west.
Yep.
If that right-of-way is extended to the south, then this garage is only going to be 9 feet off. And that's, like Stacy said, that's perfectly legal. Right. But that's the only place where that property to the south abuts public right-of-way. So has the question been asked? Is it possible to move the garage farther away from the property line so that in the future that doesn't create a non-conforming structure that would require Board of Adjustment approval for any changes to it?
Yeah, so you're saying 25 foot from the western property line then? Because that will eventually become, if a road is continued there to the south, then that would make this a double front yard.
True.
One along Golf Course Road and then one along this road here. So it'd be 25 foot off the west property line.
Right.
Or were you talking about from the south property line, making it more than 9 feet. Because if you look to the east, like 3 properties over to the east, Stacy,
Sure.
look at that garage. That looks like it's right on the line.
Well, and if the lot became a double fronted situation, that south property line would be a side yard then, so it would be conforming if it were 9 feet there. But I think that I think the question is just if Max, if you'd be willing to move it in 25 from the west property line.
Yeah, I can do that.
And then, yeah, if that ever is dedicated as public right of way, then it would be conforming.
Yep.
It's kind of tough to see, but that would essentially be close into this vicinity here.
It looks like it's approximately in line with where the home is sitting, away
Correct.
from that west property line.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice catch, Mary Karen.
All right, I'll ask one more time here on the public hearing if there's anybody here to speak on behalf before I close the public hearing. Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to approve the variance request.
Does your motion include the requirement to move it 25 foot in from the west property line?
Can I add a condition to a variance request?
Yes.
Okay.
I
then-
believe so.
Okay, I didn't know if I could, so yeah, I will, include they move the structure, to the east to make a 25-foot setback.
I'll
Okay, we
second
have that
that
motion on the
motion.
table.
I'll second
So
that
this-
motion.
Second by Bonnie. Any additional discussion on this topic? All right, we'll take a roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kays,
Yes.
Oletsky,
Yes.
Dargits Johnson,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Brink,
Yes.
Dolly,
Yes.
and Spire.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you. So we can work with you to get your building permit.
All right, thank you.
All right, moving on to item 5 on the agenda is open public comments. Was there anybody there to speak on a topic that wasn't on the agenda? All right, moving on to new business. Any new business?
No, I don't believe we have any.
Item 7 is old business.
Ford has some old business.
All right.
On September 24th, at our meeting for the property at 694 South Lake Drive, it was a unanimous vote not to allow that structure to be built. And when I drove by it just yesterday or the day before, the sidewalls are still up. I just wondered what's happening out there.
We have reached out to the property owner. I believe the city has issued a stop work order, and we will need to follow up with additional letters and written communication at this point in time. But the building official, or the building inspector rather, has been out there, as well as code enforcement officer. So we're working on that from a compliance end currently.
That was the one that was already started, right?
Yes.
Okay, and he kept going, or he just stopped and hasn't removed it yet?
I guess I'm not entirely sure what was, at what point he stopped. But yes, we will be working with the property owner. At this point, it's a violation and it needs to be removed.
Thanks for that efficiency on the staff's part.
You are very welcome.
Any additional old business?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'm just going to comment on the question Mr. Brink just had moments ago regarding conditions on variances. And I believe that this was something I was just looking at today, and I believe I may have misstated on this recently. It doesn't appear that there's anything that I can find that prohibits putting conditions on variances in state law, and our ordinance actually specifically allows for it. And so I just want to make sure that that is, as we said today, our ordinance specifically allows for the board to place conditions on variances as well as conditional uses, of course. So I just want to make sure that's clear.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Roby. All right, with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Ford moves.
Do I have a second?
Bonnie seconds.
We'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
I
Anybody opposed to adjourning? All right, we'll adjourn and then we'll reconvene here as the Plan Commission in a few moments.